we've done a few projects for some people and are still talking to others about growth. One of the things that we've been doing is helping people understand, and help them structure their agencies to sell. And in order to do that, one of the things that's always looked at is growth. Growth adds value to an insurance agency, exponential value. And how you're growing matters in an agency. And we talk to them about this growth. So they've been coming back to us and saying, you know, so how do we grow? And I always say it depends on how you want to grow and at what rate you want to grow. Um, and one of the things I always talk about is what is growth? I mean, has your agency even measured that concept, or the idea of growth? Most agencies will say, well, my revenue's growing, so I'm growing. Well, we all know that the market changes, right? There's times when the market gets hard, there's times when it gets soft. And if your revenue is ebbing and flowing with that change, are you growing? And that's the question that you have to answer for yourself, right? The way I measure growth, that shouldn't be considered how you grow. The question that I always ask is, are you growing a number of clients? All right. Have you added new clients to your base? If you've added new clients to your base, then you're growing. Um, have you added the right clients to your base? Are they in a specific niche? Right? Have you looked at your book of business itself? Have you added coverages to your existing base? Right? To your existing customers, have you gone out and actually added products or added services that help those clients, right? Or sold them an additional product. These things they tend to um, to solidify your relationship with your clients. So so those types of areas of growth really matter, right? And are looked at by potential buyers, right, in the marketplace. So buyer will look at those kind of growths and say, well, they are really growing. But if an agency is growing merely because the market has changed in a particular area or specialty, and it's hardened, and the premiums have increased on the existing base, it doesn't get viewed the same way when it comes to value. So, so how do we grow? I mean, most people that are coming to us are saying, "Hey, can you just go out there and find us some agencies, to buy that, it's just kind of a bolt-on kind of thing. It allows us to grow faster. It does all kinds of other things." Well, it does, and that's true. Growing by acquisition is faster. The question is it right for you? Is it right for your agency? Can you handle a bolt-on acquisition? Do you have the right management in place to do that? Do you have the right carriers in place to do that? When you bolt on acquisitions and bring acquisitions in, it changes the makeup of your agency if you don't do it properly, right? And people say to me all the time, what do I need in order to bring an acquisition on? And it takes absolute commitment, just like any other thing you do, right? It's that idea of 10,000 hours, right? People think you just go out there in the marketplace, find a ton of agencies, bolt them on, and life is good. Well, I'm here to tell you that, when we did this in the past, we looked at probably over three, in part as part of a bank-owned insurance agency, we went out and built $100 million insurance agency. But in order to do that, we had to look at 300 insurance agencies. We only bought 18. Um, Now people say, well, why did you do that? Well, the culture wasn't right, right? The first thing we always looked for is the concept of culture. Do these people fit into the current organization? Are they going to add anything, to our growth as much as how we're going to help them grow, right? Are they going to change? Or is the one in one going to make three instead of two, right? When we put these two together. And one of the things the CEO of the bank-owned insurance agency used to say is, I want people that I can invite to the dinner table. Those are the people I want to work with. And, it was a very intense process. We spent a whole lot of time with insurance agencies, non-financial time, non-review time with those people to make sure that they were the right fit for our agency. So spending time with them and learning more about them and understanding their culture and making sure it matches is far more important than the financial part of the transaction, right? You know, now the financial part of the transaction is obviously important. That's why you're doing the transaction. But I can tell you from experience that, I say we did 18 transactions and 17 of those were successful. One of them was not. And I can tell you the amount of time we spent on that 18th transaction in order to straighten it out, what was pretty intense. And it took a long time to get it straightened out. And a lot of manpower, a lot of effort that could have been spent other places. So making a mistake can be difficult. It can also be fatal, right? It can also be fatal. Not only reputationally, but also financially. So we have to be very careful bringing on new acquisitions. Many people that start that process start with people they know, local, um, very close agencies in proximity and geographic area because they know them or they know of them. But that doesn't mean the cultures match. So you still need to spend the time. So, you know, um, growing by acquisitions, you see a lot of these agencies out there, these roll-up types of agencies out there building this way. It costs money, right? It's expensive to do this. Um, and they also have to put teams in place to grow at the exponential level that they want to grow. And these teams have to be led from the top of the organization. You can't do this process just by showing up. It doesn't work that way. You have to be blood type determined. So my message to someone who's out there looking to do or to grow by acquisition is is it possible? Yes. You see it every day, right? You see private equities, entering this market every day, trying to try and grow by acquisition. Uh, to do it right is definitely something that takes effort. Just as much effort as any other area of your business, if not more. It takes more money than you think it's going to take, and it takes a dedicated team that's in place in order to not only find these acquisitions, but find the right acquisitions. Um, and all of this needs a strategy. And that strategy has to be developed before you start going after these agencies. Because if if you don't decide the types of agencies and the type of culture that you want, you're just going to be going out to everybody at that point, and it's not a very successful process, right? Um, what you do is you blanket the market, you're talking to everybody. The problem is you're going after, you know, that 300 agencies in order to find your five or six agencies that you're looking to grow, or your one or two that you're looking to grow, and you're not focused. So it takes a focused strategy, great leadership in that area, and a very focused team. You get those things together, it's just like any other profit center in your organization, and hopefully you're successful. Even then, the chances of being successful in that area are going to be high. The other thing is don't skip the due diligence part of the process. Don't fall in love. And a lot of people fall in love with this process. it's exciting. It's different than what they're used to doing day to day. It's not going out and talking to clients. It's talking about bringing in revenue and other partners. But in order to be successful and to compete with the competition out there, the smaller agencies that are looking to do this have a lot of the competition's intense, and it also is the competition's offering equity, and that gets expensive, as many of us know in business, by giving people part of the equity, in a transaction. It can get very expensive and very difficult long term if you're thinking about your long term kind of solution and how you perpetuate the business, right? It gets expensive later on and more difficult because now you have partners in there that also have to be satisfied with the process at the end. So learning to always focus on that end game is something that we try and help our clients understand. The next part of the process is really understanding that competition. What are the hurdles that you have to make in order to compete with them, right? They have the money, they have the team, they have the ability, they have the mass, and they have the equity. And the question is, do you really want to get into that process? So the other side of this, and I always hear about this. Well, maybe what we should do is just go out and try and hire producers from other agencies. They'll bring a team with them, and we'll take the producer and the team with us, and that could be a way to grow. Yeah, it's true. It is a way. It's a way to grow. And a lot of people, because of this displacement that's going on in the industry right now, because of all the acquisitions that are going on, there are some people out there that are disheartened and are looking to move to other agencies. So they reach out to these smaller agencies and say, hey, I have this book of business or this, this stream of revenue, and I also have a team, and I can bring not only myself, but I can bring the team with me, and I can bring my whole book of business with me. And I'm here to tell you that we've gone through that process a bunch of different times. I've done it both from an agency perspective and also represented agencies in that type of transaction. The problem you run into is it's just as difficult bringing on a producer and their employees in a book of business as it is buying an agency, and sometimes even more difficult, because producers are producers, as we all know, in the insurance business, and they're always, I'm going to be able to bring my whole book of business with me. All these people are going to come with me. But when you really get involved in the transaction, what you find out is those people are pretty happy where they are, so they don't want to leave, right? So you have difficulty bringing the people. Carrier relationships have to match up perfectly, because you can't bring over the business, the insurance business, if you don't have the markets, right? And you could if you have a different market. The only problem is maybe your client doesn't want to come, right? That happens often also. They have a choice in the process, and we forget about that, right? We forget that they have a choice because the producer thinks they control the business, and basically they might control the business until they try and move it from the agency that they're with, and then it becomes even more difficult. And that's all on top of the fact that the agency they're leaving is not going to be really ecstatic about losing all that business, right? And people talk about non-competes and how they're not effective and all this kind of stuff. But do you really want to spend your time, right, fighting that fight, right? And not even understanding how much of that business that you're going to bring over, right? It's a very difficult, delicate process that people believe is the easier way to do things. And listen, I mean, lots of producers do control some business, but they find out very quickly just about how much they do control when they try and go through a process like that. And it generally is about 60% of the business ends up coming and 48% of the business ends up staying, right? And now you have this producer, you have the new employees, and you have about 60% of the business that they thought they could bring. So it becomes a difficult situation. Now, bolting on those kind of things is great if everything goes smoothly. Question is, how are they coming? What are they leaving? That's really where you have to do your due diligence, right? So difficult, not as easy as most people think to just bolt these things on. Should say that, don't you think we should talk about, did we talk really interested in going out and buying insurance agencies? The first message is to create the right team, right? To create the right strategy and the right team and to invest in doing this. It's not cheap because you have to have the right people in the right places, all doing the right things, right? Just to actually go out and find the agencies is difficult, right? You have to go out there, you'd have to market yourself and really put this together. So if you really want to be successful at buying these agencies, the way to do it is to treat it like any other profit center. You need to get the right people in place, the right strategy in place, the right types of agencies that you want to go after, and know and understand that it's going to be a process and it's going to take time, right? So it's going to be a big investment up front. The second thing I would say to somebody who really wants to do this is to make sure that culture is your number one priority when you're looking at other agencies. You can't fall in love because everybody does this. The first agency they see, they want to buy because it's exciting and they fall in love with that agency. It doesn't matter what the culture is, doesn't matter what the numbers are. It's the person that they're talking to. Get to know the agency, understand what's going on in that agency, find out from others about that agency, and dig deep into the management and maybe even to the next level, if they'll allow it, to find out what's really going on in that agency. You know, the why they want to sell is always important. Okay. The last thing is to be able to, uh, no is a very powerful word in this case. Walking away from these transactions when they're not a good fit is really hard to do sometimes. But my suggestion is to do it before you get involved if the culture doesn't match. What a lot of people do is they get a bad reputation initially when they first start going after agencies. Um, and they're after a bunch of agencies and not the right focus, and those agencies are not a good fit for them. So they get halfway through a process and they realize that it's not a good fit for them. So the word in the market is they took us all the way through, like halfway through the process, and then they said no, right? So getting to know them before you get into a process is really important. That beginning stage is just like a marriage, right? In that beginning stage, you have all the marriage, you have all the positives of marriage. You're new, everybody's in love, the butterflies are flying, you know, it's all great. It's when you really get into the hard decision-making processes that things start getting hard and people's real character comes to light. So character is just important as finance here.